he kind of got to prove he could compete in two weight classes in one night because technically he knocked out a solid light welterweight, not even a lightweight. Anyways, what'd you think of Keyshawn Davis 2 rounds at home?
Credit to Keyshawn for his performance. Boxing, like America, seems to never learn its lessons. We are so ready to celebrate an overachievement from anybody that we forget that what is the foundation of that victory is corrupt. You can't come in 6 fucking pounds overweight and expect to fight. In fact, even if the fighter who in right there in the title by name definition, the fighter is going to want to fight because Keyshawn is a real one. He's going to want to fight. He's been through training camp. There's money on the table. He thinks he can knock this guy out if he was 12 pounds overweight, especially come fight week. It's like I'll fight King Kong today. Somebody, maybe the commission, so does first, and then the promoter, and then the trainer. Somebody's got to step in front of the fighter, like you do when you throw in the towel, like you do when you say the doctor steps in and says the cut's too big. Somebody's got to step in and say the pound differential is too large. You cannot keep condoning these kind of matchups, even if the fighter wants it. And this is going to embolden other fighters to make that mistake. It's twofold. If somebody's got to protect the fighter from himself. That's a part of boxing. And then there's got to be a punishment for the guy who blows off the weight and disrespects the sport and tanks everybody's money. I don't mind Devin Haney suing Ryan Garcia. If he can make his claim in court that this guy came in with bad intentions and did something so far outside the sport that it reaches the level of assault or whatever the fuck, he's then make your case in court because you, in my estimation, did something that's outside the realm of the sport. And then, yes, Devin Haney, has some responsibility for accepting that, and he took money for it. But again, I don't put this is one of those things I don't put on the fighter. It's like expecting the fighter to throw in the towel when he feels like he's got one more punch left. Somebody's got to step in front of him. That's what the fuck are all these commissions and all this shit for, if not to protect the fighter in a situation like this and protect the sport by punishing the fighter who comes in 6 pounds overweight, not allowing him to fight. Maybe he owes Keyshawn the money for the purse. Maybe,
I
maybe
think
that's
that's
a
part of what was worked out. I think he ultimately paid a big chunk out of his purse to
but
keep
what I'm saying is pay the chunk and don't even get the fight. Right?
him.
This is like, okay, well, what if the Dallas Cowboys put 20 men on the field before a play? Do you think that they're going to let them run the play? The play stands, and then the Cowboys just pay the 49ers an extra 40 G's? No, that play can't happen because that's not what the sport is. That's not the rules. This is outrageous. That's what I thought. And the fact that Keyshawn did such an incredible job in getting rid of this guy with that credible advantage is only going to make other fighters feel like not only should they, but they have to take this fight on, even if the guy misses weight. And it's not like he missed weight. 6 pounds, you weren't even trying to make weight. You came in, like I believe Garcia came in, just like, fuck the weight. He'll accept it. I'll pay the money. Because if he had gotten the victory, what would that have meant for his career, for his future earning opportunities? Yes, he was overweight, but he would have still got his hand raised. He would have still leveled up where he was in boxing and what he could do potentially to earn the next fight. Or there had been a rematch that had been worth tons of money. But you could also hurt your opponent unfairly. The fact that you have to cut weight and make weight is an important part of the fight dynamic. So one guy's cutting weight, making weight, struggling to get there on the day before, and then trying to rehydrate up and doing all that shit that it requires to make weight. And the other guy just blows it off for the entire camp, comes in 6 pounds heavier, has a harder punch, and can hurt you and damage your career. No one is going to take anything from him after the fight if that guy who's in 6 pounds over wins it that is worthy of the punishment he deserves. The punishment he deserves is not to be able to fight, to owe the other fighter the money that he has denied this fighter by not being professional, by not fighting inside the rules, and the fighter himself who decides now to take the fight should have that decision taken out of his hands.
Yeah, yeah, all excellent points made. And yeah, the last 6.5 months have been great PR for blowing weight. and getting away with it because Ryan blew weight by 3.2, and nobody's trying to hear that shit for the most part in the court of public opinion, right?
Right. They're
In
like,
the
stop
actual
crying, Haney. You
right,
took
right.
the
No one,
money, Haney.
and then Keyshawn Davis, just to add on to it, 6 months later, he gets this knockout in 2 rounds. Like, why can't you be more like Keyshawn? Why can't you be a real one? Like Raheem said about Keyshawn at the
That's
top
right.
of the you
That's
know.
right. That's
So
right. Um,
yeah, because I initially was like, hey, find this guy heavy, but as I was tweeting it the day of the weigh-in, I'm like, but what are you saying? You're still letting them get away with it, to your point. And yeah, it's now I
yeah,
think you covered it pretty well, that
yeah.
aspect of it. But
Yeah, I mean, credit to you. You broke the fight down. That's the only fight breakdown we're gonna get today on that fight because to me that wasn't a fight. That wasn't a boxing match. That was a fucking street fight. What's the difference? 6 pounds, 60 pounds. Like, what are we doing? That I'm not willing to review that fight because I don't believe that thing should have taken place. It was an attempted assault.
well, I will enable the bullshit a little bit. I'll give the fans the audience a quick assessment and review of the
There you
fight. I
go.
think so. One thing I was happy that I tuned into the morning of Friday, the morning of Keyshawn's fight. I just randomly was on YouTube watching instead of working. I was watching. Well, technically, this is work, right? I was
Yeah.
watching the old Kronk YouTube channel. I was watching Gerald McClellan spar James Toney, Matthew Said Muhammad sparring Michael Moore, and what was the other one I saw? I can't remember it right now. Some great Kronk sparring. Oh, Michael Moore. Yeah, I already said that. Moore and Said Muhammad. But watching these great fighters from the late '80s, early '90s, and just honestly noting all the great things those great fighters from that great era did and throwing combinations, being complete and well-rounded, boxing great on the outside, but also knowing when to step inside and throwing combinations with a certain level of spite and bad intentions and just kind of watching it like the game is missing this a little bit too much today. And thankfully, later that night, Keyshawn delivered. He gave me some of what, because a lot of these guys that are talented coming up in America, they give us flashes of yesteryear's greatness.
Mm.
They have moments. Boots Ennis has them. Terrence Crawford is the guy who can actually compete in any era. So he doesn't just show flashes. He is that guy fighting in modern today boxing. Although his era not as strong as they were, but I thought Keyshawn began to realize his potential because he has this great jab. He has great combinations and an offensive arsenal. He has upper body movement. The one critique I've always had about him is those legs are thin. And I do wonder, and he's a tall lightweight, a little bit, got a long frame a little bit, not like a Sebastian Fundora, but so part of me wonders, is he a little bit upright in the pocket? Are those legs a little thin? Are those things that can be exploited? But ultimately, he's checking so many boxes. He can move, he can box, he has an excellent long jab, he has power in both hands. And he brought out 10,000 plus in Virginia. And between Boots and Keyshawn bringing 10,000 plus in their hometowns back to back, it almost felt like, okay, this is the start of the real reset in American boxing. Like, this is the blueprint, is you got to stop forcing fights into Vegas that are either going to be fought in front of 1,500 people or if you try to put it in a big room, it's going to have a lot of empty spaces. It's like, fight in front of your hometown, build that up, and then eventually they will travel with you to Vegas when it
That's
makes sense.
encouraging. I say
Yeah,
don't travel to Vegas at all. Vegas
right.
is no fucking hub of boxing anymore.
Well, I live
It's
here,
just
so
a
I'm
desert.
selfishly like,
Yeah. So the world is so much smaller. The hometown crowd supporting you is much more important to me. If you can pull that number in your hometown, fight there, embolden that economy, let the vendors in your local town get paid, let everybody continue to support you and make if you're the A side, make fighters come to you. And then you know what? If you are leveling up and facing an A side that's bigger than you, go to his hometown. I would love boxing to become that because I travel essentially to the same four cities for my entire year. I just, you know what I mean? I would love to go to this town and that town and that town because it's this fighter and that fighter. I do think that one of the advantages of social media and the world becoming so small is that you can grow your popularity at home. You can start filling arenas earlier if you have talent, you're entertaining. And that is one of those things that it makes a fighter not want to cancel the fight, even if the other guy is cheating. And yes, I consider coming in 6 pounds heavy fucking cheating. So the only other thing I'll say about this is the fight used to be on because the weigh-in happened the day of, and you make the weight the day of. If you miss the weight the day of, the fight is off. And the argument that I hear about that is, well, it was terrible for the fighters because they're drained on the day and everybody's cutting to kill themselves to make weight. And so it's much more dangerous to fight that night instead of giving them a chance to rehydrate, which I think you're legislating against the worst actors. Like the solution to that is for fighters to stop doing that and fight in their weight class, not to make the weigh in a day before and then oh, the way fighters protect themselves, trainers protect their fighters. You don't bring a fighter in drained the day of the fight because that's dangerous. So fight in your weight class. Those are two things I would like. Those are two things I would like to see. More fighters fighting at home if they have that draw. I love that. And I say bring the weigh-in back to the day of the fight. I want to see fighters in their weight class. I don't want to see these guys drain down 24 hours for the fight and then a race to rehydrate. And that's already bad enough. The idea that you would come in 6 pounds heavy the day before and then probably still do some rehydrating is crazy. So,
So
yeah.
I have a final kind of hot take about Keyshawn then before we move on to Boots, and that's I think he's on his way to being the better lightweight than Shakur Stevenson, his brother. The guy, you know, those guys are real tight. And I actually saw them spar just before Keyshawn went to the Olympics. So, you know, those guys are probably never going to fight. Although never say never, but they're probably, you know, anyway. But I look, Shakur's coming up from 126 and 130. And if you take out the Yoshino fight, he just hasn't been the force at 135 that he was at 130. He was better at 130 thus far than he is at 135. Keyshawn starting at 135. He's, I think, at 135 and 140, he's the tougher out. Maybe not right now, but within 2 or 3 fights than Shakur Stevenson. He's just a bigger guy, bigger puncher, has a lot of skill himself, a lot of ring IQ himself. And then by Gervonta Davis and Shakur Stevenson, because they're both, you know, they're both culpable for this fight, this unification at lightweight not happening. It's not all on Davis. It's not all on Stevenson, but they.
Sean, your analysis is the best. I really enjoy listening to you talk about prospects.
Yeah.
Because you're giving so much attention to everything and all the potential outcomes. But until they face each other, I will continue to do these post-fight conversations because they are notable guys. But I'm not ready to label anybody the best of anything or the better even than the other guy because until they face each other, they're all just prospects on an island and they're taking on fish, not other islanders. You know, they're out there fishing, just pulling guys out of the fucking lake and eating them. What I want to see is Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, it's excellent, but just all I'm saying is by taking so long to make this Stevenson fight, by the time and I love this, by the time you fight Stevenson and maybe beat him if you're Davis, everyone's gonna be like, that's cool. Can you run the undisputed fade with Keyshawn Davis now? Whereas if you do those summit meetings in a timely manner, you get a grace period. You get no. You motherfuckers gotta calm down and can't ask me to go out, even though this is silly, but you can't ask me to go after the next dragon. I have a grace period. I just slayed the last one you asked.
What grace period? This is all grace period. You just like you are. I'm listening to Sean Zattel fan fiction.
Yeah,
none of this has happened. So you know, Godspeed, guys. Like you know, somebody pull Excalibur out of the rock.
Yeah, and to that point, like where the fighters are like, you're always gonna ask me to fight. I beat this guy. You want me to beat this guy? It's like, yes, you beat the Chiefs. Can you beat the Ravens?
Yeah,
exactly. Can you also beat the Lions?
You beat the Chiefs on Sunday. Now you want to play flag football for 3 months.